I still remember the exact way my mother's voice sounded when she said it, calm, almost bored, like she was reading off a grocery list. Get out. Not please. Not Beta, I can't handle this. Not even anger. Just, get out. And the worst part. It wasn't even the day I got sick that broke me. It was months later, when she looked straight through me at a crowded community event and said, loud enough for people to hear, I don't know her. Have you ever been erased while you were still breathing? Because that night, I learned something about survival. And I learned something worse about family. I grew up in a house where love had rules. If you were useful, you were loved. If you were quiet, you were tolerated. If you needed something, you were a problem. My mother, Nadia, was the kind of woman people admired from a distance. Sharp lipstick. Sharper tongue. She ran the house like a business and ran our family reputation like it was a throne she had to protect. My older brother, Amir, was the golden child. He could breathe wrong and she'd call it ambition. Me. I was the extra. The spare. The girl who did the dishes before anyone asked, because I knew the sound of my mother's sigh meant danger. And my father, Baba, he wasn't cruel. He was worse. He was absent while standing right there. He'd look up from his newspaper when my mother snapped at me, and he'd give me that soft, helpless expression that said, don't make it harder for her. As if my existence was an inconvenience I should apologize for. One night, I was 17, and I came home with a letter. Not the kind you can throw away. A scholarship offer. My hands were shaking as I slid it across the dining table. I waited for something. Pride. Surprise. A hug. My mother skimmed it like it was a receipt. She said. So you'll leave. I blinked. It's a good thing, Amy. They want me. She set the letter down and finally looked at me. Her eyes weren't warm. They were calculating. Just remember, she said slowly, don't embarrass us. That's the first time I understood something important. She didn't love me as a person. She loved me as a reflection. And reflections are disposable. When my father fell ill later, I came back. Not because I wanted to. Because in families like mine, guilt is the leash. It started as exhaustion. Not I didn't sleep well tired. I mean the kind of tired that feels like your bones are filled with wet sand. My joints ached. My skin felt like it was bruised from the inside. Some mornings I'd wake up and my fingers wouldn't close properly, like my own hands didn't belong to me. But autoimmune illness is a cruel kind of sickness. Because it doesn't always show. You can put on a scarf, a smile, a little makeup, and people think you're fine. They don't see the invisible fire inside you. They don't see you standing in the bathroom gripping the sink, whispering, please, just let me get through today. I didn't tell my mother at first. Because in my house, sickness wasn't met with compassion. It was met with suspicion. But one morning, I collapsed in the kitchen. The mug shattered. Tea splashed across the tile like spilled blood. I remember my brother's voice, annoyed. Drama again. And I remember my mother, standing over me, arms crossed, as if I'd done this to ruin her day. You're always making scenes, she said. I tried to speak, but my throat was tight. My heart was racing too fast. Baba finally called for help. But even as he didn't touch me. Didn't hold me. Just watched. Like I was something fragile he didn't want to be responsible for breaking. In the hospital, the doctor used words that sounded like foreign countries. Autoimmune markers. Chronic inflammation. Long-term management. I heard chronic and my stomach dropped. Chronic meant forever. It meant my life was going to be measured in flare-ups and medication bottles. It meant I was about to become expensive. And my mother hated anything that cost her without making her look good. The flare-up that broke everything came in winter. Cold air felt like knives in my joints. My body betrayed me in small humiliating ways, dropping plates, forgetting words mid-sentence, losing balance on stairs. That evening, I was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, trying not to cry because my muscles hurt like I'd been beaten. My mother walked in and stared at me the way you stare at a stain. How long will this go on? She asked. I swallowed. I'm trying, Amy. The doctor. She cut me off with one sharp laugh. Doctor, doctor, doctor. You think we're made of money? I looked toward my father for help. He didn't look up. My brother leaned against the doorway, smirking like this was entertainment. And then my mother said the sentence that still echoes in my skull. If you're going to be a burden, she said, be a burden somewhere else. My lungs refused to work. What? She pointed toward the front door. Get out. I sat up too fast and the room spun. Amy, where will I go? Her face didn't change. That's not my problem. I laughed once, because surely this was a test. A cruel joke. A threat meant to scare me into being healthy. But she turned and walked away. Like she had thrown out trash. My hands shook as I stood. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I packed a small bag with stupid things, my charger, a sweater, my medication bottles. And then I hesitated in my room. Because on my dresser was something I hadn't touched in years. A small, worn wooden prayer box, a little carved thing my grandmother had given me when I was a child. She used to tell me, smiling gently, put your fears in here. If you can't carry them, let God carry them. That night, I grabbed it like it could keep my heart from falling out of my chest. I walked to the front door. My mother didn't even come to see me off. My father cleared his throat once, like he wanted to say something. But he didn't, and I stepped outside into the cold. That click wasn't just a lock. It was a sentence. I stood on the porch, staring at the dark, waiting for a neighbor's window to open, waiting for someone to say, "Hey, are you okay?" No one did. Because family drama is like smoke. Everyone smells it. No one wants to breathe it. I sat on the curb with my bag and my prayer box in my lap, trying to keep my hands from trembling. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Nadia, don't come back. And don't tell anyone. You'll ruin us. I reread it until the words stopped making sense. Then my vision blurred. I wasn't just sick. I was exiled. I ended up at a cheap rental room above a laundromat, because the landlord didn't ask questions and the walls were thin enough that no one could hide what they were. The smell of detergent mixed with damp air. The floor creaked like it was warning me not to trust it. I worked when I could, remote contract jobs, editing, whatever my foggy brain could handle. Some days I felt almost normal. Other days I couldn't lift my arms. The loneliness was its own illness. It crawled into bed with me at night, whispering, "They were right. You're too much. You're not worth it." But then I'd open the prayer box. Inside, I kept a folded piece of paper, blank at first. I started writing one sentence each day. Not goals. Not affirmations. Just truth. Day 1, I didn't deserve that. Day 14, I miss my father, even though he failed me. Day 30, I'm still here. The box became my motif, my anchor. The one thing that reminded me I still belonged to myself. A few months later, I learned something that made my blood run cold. A letter arrived from the hospital billing department. Not addressed to me. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. "Hello." My mother's voice slid into my ear like a blade. "What are you doing?" she asked. My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" "You went to Safia," she said, each word clipped. "You think you can shame me?" My hands shook. "You denied me." A pause. Then she laughed, soft, cold. "I denied a liar," she said. "Do you want me to say it publicly? That you're a sick girl making things up for attention?" My heart hammered. "I'm not making." "Listen," she snapped. "If you keep this up, I will tell everyone you're unstable. I will tell them you're on drugs. I will tell them you're dangerous." My stomach dropped. Because I knew my mother. She didn't need evidence. She needed confidence. People believed her because they wanted to. Because believing a polished woman was easier than believing a sick daughter. I whispered, "Why are you doing this?" Her voice lowered, almost intimate. "Because you're not worth what you're trying to take." And then she said the line that made my hands go numb. You were never supposed to come back. The call ended. I stared at my phone, ears ringing. Never supposed to come back. Like I was a mistake that had survived. When I told Bibi Safia, she didn't gasp. She didn't panic. She sat very still. Then she said, quietly, "Good." I blinked. Good. She threatened me. Bibi Safia's eyes were like stone. Now she has shown her hand. She reached into her bag and pulled out another thing. A small envelope, yellowed at the edges. My breath caught. It had my grandmother's handwriting. Bibi Safia placed it in my palm like she was placing a sword. "She wrote this for you," she said. "But she told me, do not give it until the daughter is desperate enough to hear truth." My throat tightened. What does it say? Bibi Safia looked toward the hall where my mother still smiled for others. "It says," she murmured, "who you are. And what she did." My heart stumbled. I held the envelope but didn't open it yet. Because a part of me, the little girl who washed dishes for love, was still hoping this was all misunderstanding. Bibi Safia leaned closer. "Child," she said, voice low, "people like your mother survive on your hesitation." She tapped the prayer box in my bag gently. "You have been carrying pain like it is your duty," she said. "Now carry truth." The paper inside smelled like old wood and time. My grandmother's words were neat. And devastating. "My beloved granddaughter. If you are reading this, it means Nadia has done what I feared she would do. You were always the kindest in that house. That is why you were always the target. I have left a trust in your name. Not because I hate Nadia, but because I know her. She will take what she can. She will rewrite stories. She will call cruelty necessity. If she denies you, it is because she has tried to erase you from the papers. Do not let her. Bibi Safia will help you. And if Nadia says she doesn't know you, remind her she signed the hospital forms when you were born. I saw it with my own eyes. I read the last line again. And again. My hands shook. She signed the hospital forms when you were born. Proof. My chest tightened as tears finally spilled. Not just because I was hurt, but because my grandmother, gone, buried, silent, was still protecting me. I pressed the letter to my forehead and whispered, "Thank you." Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. A photo. My mother standing beside my father, and a man in a suit. The caption, "Stop, or we will finish this." And underneath, "We know where you live." My blood ran cold. Bibi Safia moved fast. She called people who mattered. Not loud gossipers, quiet, powerful elders. She arranged a meeting at the community center under the excuse of family reconciliation. And my mother agreed. Because my mother always believed she could control rooms. The day of the meeting, my body felt weak. My joints screamed. My stomach churned. But I wore my cleanest clothes and tucked the letter into my prayer box like a heart I couldn't drop. My mother walked in like she owned the air. She smiled at everyone. Then she saw me. And her smile faltered, just a hair. She recovered quickly. "Who is this?" she asked sweetly, pointing at me like I was a stranger who wandered in. My heart pounded. Before I could speak, Bibi Safia stood. "This is your daughter," she said. My mother laughed. "Safia, please. My daughter is abroad." "That is a lie," Bibi Safia replied. My mother's eyes narrowed. "You're confused." Bibi Safia's voice remained calm. "No. You are shameless." A murmur rippled through the room. My mother's cheeks tightened. "How dare you speak to me like? How dare you deny your own blood?" Bibi Safia cut in. Then she turned to the room. "I'm old," she said. "I have no reason to lie. I saw this child grow. I held her as a baby when her grandmother begged me to pray for her." My mother's eyes flashed with anger. "She's sick," my mother snapped. "She's unstable. She makes stories." My throat tightened. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood slowly, my legs shaking. And I placed the prayer box on the table. The sound of wood hitting wood was small. But in that room, It landed like thunder. I'm not asking for love, I said, voice trembling but clear. I'm asking for truth. My mother's lip curled. Truth. You want money. Amir, my brother, shifted in his seat, eyes sharp. She's always been jealous. I turned to him. Jealous? I whispered. You watched her throw me out while I could barely stand. He shrugged like it meant nothing. And that was its own betrayal. Mr. Qureshi, the lawyer Bibi Safia brought, stood. I'd like to present documents, he said. My mother's posture stiffened. Mr. Qureshi placed copies on the table. Hospital correspondence. The trust photocopy. And then, the most important request. We will need, he said, the original birth record forms from the hospital, signed by Nadia. My mother laughed sharply. Ridiculous. This is harassment. Bibi Safia leaned forward. Nadia, she said softly, do you want me to tell them what you did with the ring? Silence. My mother's eyes widened for half a second. And in that half second, everyone saw it. Fear. Bibi Safia continued. You took your mother's ring, she said. You sold it. You used the money. And you told people it was lost. My mother stood up so fast her chair screeched. That's a lie. Bibi Safia finished. Like I don't know her. My mother's voice rose. You have no proof. Bibi Safia turned her palm upward. And someone from the side, an elderly jeweler from the community, walked forward with a small pouch. He poured something into his hand. A gold ring with a green stone. My grandmother's ring. My breath left my body. The jeweler spoke carefully. She sold it to me, he said. I recognized it later from photos. When Safia asked, I returned it. My mother's face drained. People began whispering. Low, angry. My mother tried to speak, but the room had turned. That's the thing about reputation. It's glass. It looks strong until the first crack. Then everyone suddenly hears how fragile it always was. My mother's voice turned desperate. Fine, she hissed. Yes, she's someone I knew. But she's not. She is, Bibi Safia said, voice like steel, your daughter. My mother's eyes snapped to me. And in them, I saw something worse than hatred. I saw calculation. She looked at the elders. At the lawyer. At the ring. Then she turned back to me, and her voice softened into performance. Beta, she said, why are you doing this? Come home. We can fix. I felt nausea rise. Because that word, beta, hadn't touched my ears in years. Not when I was on the curb. Not when I was alone above the laundromat. Not when I was sick. Now she used it like makeup. To cover the rot. I opened the prayer box. And I pulled out my grandmother's letter. My hands were shaking, but my voice didn't break. My grandmother wrote this, I said. My mother's eyes flickered. I read the line out loud. She signed the hospital forms when you were born. I saw it with my own eyes. My mother's jaw clenched. Bibi Safia nodded to Mr. Qureshi. He spoke. We will request the hospital records legally, he said. If Nadia refuses cooperation, the court will compel it. My mother's breath hitched. And then she did something I'll never forget. She looked at me, her own child, and whispered like a threat. You will regret this. I stared back, voice quiet. I already did, I said. For years. Weeks passed. The legal process began. And the truth, slow, undeniable, came out. The hospital produced the records. My mother's signature. My name. My existence. She couldn't erase me. But the twist wasn't just that I was proven. The twist was what my grandmother actually left behind. The trust wasn't meant to make me rich. It was meant to make me free. It covered medical care, stable housing, and most importantly, a clause that said if Nadia interfered or attempted fraud, she would receive nothing from the remaining estate assets. My mother's greed had triggered her own punishment. Her attempt to erase me had activated the lock my grandmother built. And Bibi Safia, quiet, prepared, had been holding the key all along. When my mother learned this, she didn't call to apologize. She called to bargain. "You can stop this," she said. "We can share." I closed my eyes. The old me would have folded. The old me would have thought, if I give her something, maybe she'll love me. But illness changes you. It strips you down until only truth remains. And the truth was, a mother who throws you out during sickness doesn't love you. She loves control. So I said, calmly, "No." The silence on the line was thick. Then her voice sharpened. "You'll die alone," she spat. I swallowed. My hands trembled, but not with fear. With release. "Maybe," I said softly, "but at least I won't die begging you." I ended the call. And I didn't cry afterward. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it finally made sense. I moved into a modest apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. On the shelf by my bed, I placed 3 things. My grandmother's ring. My wooden prayer box. A copy of the trust papers, not as a trophy, just as proof that truth can survive lies. Some nights, my illness still flares. Some mornings, my hands still ache. But now, when I wake up in pain, I don't hear my mother's voice calling me a burden. I hear Bibi Safia's voice. Do not lie in a room full of witnesses. And I ask myself a question that used to scare me. If my own mother could deny me, what else can I survive? The answer is always the same. More than I thought. Beat. Soft music builds. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes justice doesn't come like a punch. Sometimes it comes like an elder's steady hand on your wrist, pulling you back from the edge. Sometimes it comes like a ring returned. Sometimes it comes like your own voice, finally strong enough to say, "I'm here. I exist. And I'm done being erased." I lay on my mattress with the blanket pulled up to my chin, staring at the ceiling stain that looked like a map to some place I'd never be brave enough to go. My joints were swelling again. My fingers were stiff, like someone had glued my knuckles shut. I could feel the flare-up climbing my spine, slow, inevitable, like a storm you can smell before you see. I tried to breathe through it. In. Out. Don't panic. Don't give her the satisfaction of breaking you. I reached for the wooden prayer box beside me, the edges worn smooth by my grandmother's hands and now mine. It felt warm in my palm, even though my room was cold. I opened it. Inside, the photocopies, the letter, and the small folded paper where I wrote my daily truths. My pen hovered. And I wrote. Day 61, if I die, let it not be from shame. A laugh escaped me, thin, almost hysterical. Because it hit me then, how ridiculous it was that I was still negotiating with my own dignity. My mother had already decided what I was worth. My brother had already placed bets on my silence. My father had already chosen comfort over courage. So why was I still trying to be acceptable? A sharp pain tore through my abdomen, and I doubled over, breath turning shallow. Autoimmune flare-ups are like betrayal from inside your own skin. You can't argue with them. You can't reason with them. They don't care if you have plans or pride or paperwork. I fumbled for my medication bottle. The cap wouldn't open. My hands were shaking too hard. "Come on," I whispered, teeth clenched. "Please, please." I hit the bottle against the floor in frustration. Pills scattered like tiny white teeth. My vision blurred. For one terrifying second I thought, this is it. This is where I disappear. And I heard my mother's voice like a curse. "You'll die alone." But then another voice pushed through the fog, gentle, older. "Put your fears in here." My grandmother. My prayer box. I crawled to it, pressing my forehead to the wood like it could absorb pain. And when I finally got a pill into my mouth, my throat burned as I swallowed without water. I lay back down, shaking, and stared at the door. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of dying without anyone ever knowing what she did. Beat. So I made a decision in the dark. If my body was going to betray me, I'd at least make sure my mother couldn't. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of something scraping under my door. I sat up too fast, dizzy, and the room tilted. An envelope lay on the floor, half inside, half out. No stamp. No return address. My fingers went numb as I picked it up. It wasn't my mother's handwriting. It was my brother's. Amir had a distinctive slant to his letters, like he was always in a hurry to finish a sentence before anyone could interrupt him. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Just 2 lines. We can do this quietly. Stop digging, or we'll make sure nobody believes you. My throat tightened. Because that wasn't just a threat. That was a strategy. I stared at the paper, feeling the old panic rise. My mother's favorite weapon, injected into my bloodstream through a page. And then I noticed something. A faint smear of ink at the bottom, as if the paper had been pressed onto something else. Like it had been written on top of another sheet. I held it up to the light. A ghost of words. A partial imprint. Not readable. But enough to tell me, this message had a twin. And suddenly my mind snapped into focus. If he delivered this himself, he was here. Which meant I wasn't imagining it. Which meant they truly knew where I lived. My fingers tightened around the paper until it crumpled. My chest was tight, but I could feel something else underneath the fear. Anger. Hot, clean anger. I slid the paper into my prayer box and closed it with a soft click. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. Now it's war. Mr. Qureshi read the threat quietly, then placed it down like it was dirty. He looked at me for a long moment. His eyes were tired but sharp. They're trying to provoke you, he said. My voice trembled. They already did. They're stalking me. He held up a hand. Listen. If you react emotionally in public, they will call you unstable. If you accuse without proof, they will call you desperate. People like your mother don't fight with fists. He leaned forward. They fight with stories. I swallowed. So what do I do? He tapped the paper. We document. We record. We build a timeline. We collect witnesses. Witnesses. That word hit me hard. Because my whole childhood had been a lonely argument against my mother's version of reality. Mr. Qureshi continued, voice calm. You need someone with more social weight than Nadia. Someone the community trusts. I didn't have to ask. I already knew. Bibi Safia, I said. He nodded. Exactly. I exhaled, shaky. She's risking her reputation for me. Mr. Qureshi's mouth twitched, almost a smile. She's not risking it, he said. She's using it. Then he added, softer. And you're going to learn something, Betty. There's a difference between being protected and being hidden. The words slid into my chest and settled there. Protected, not hidden. I repeated it in my head on the way out. Protected, not hidden. That night, I dreamed of my grandmother. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was my memory finally letting me see what I'd refused to understand. I was small again, maybe 8, sitting cross-legged on her prayer mat while she braided my hair. Her fingers were gentle, but her voice had an edge I didn't hear back then. Your mother, she said quietly, is a woman who mistakes control for love. I turned my head. Does she love me? My grandmother paused. It was just a second, but even as a child I felt the weight of it. She loves what you can do, she said at last. And one day, when you need her, she may not know how to be kind. I remember frowning, confused. But she's my mother. My grandmother's hands resumed braiding. Yes, she said. That is why it will hurt more. Then she pressed the wooden prayer box into my palm. Keep this, she said. One day you will need something that belongs only to you. I blinked in the dream, a child's innocent question rising. Why? And my grandmother's eyes met mine in the dim light. Because when people try to rewrite you, she whispered, you will need proof that you existed before their lies. I woke up with my heart racing. The prayer box was on my nightstand. And it felt heavier than it ever had. After the meeting where Bibi Safia exposed the ring and challenged my mother's denial, something shifted. Not loudly. Communities like ours don't explode. They simmer. I started noticing it in small, humiliating ways. A woman at the halal grocery glanced at my mother and didn't smile back. An uncle who used to laugh with my father now nodded stiffly and walked away. My mother's perfect family story had cracked, and the thing about cracks is they invite eyes. People started looking. And my mother hated being looked at. One afternoon, I stood outside the community center waiting for Bibi Safia. My hands were cold, but my mind was sharp with anxiety. My mother stepped out from the side door. Alone. No crowd. No performance. Just her. She approached me like a storm choosing a direction. "You're enjoying this," she hissed. I swallowed. "I'm surviving it." Her eyes narrowed. "Surviving? You always play the victim." I felt a familiar urge, to explain, to justify, to beg her to understand. But I was tired. Tired to my bones. So I said the truth, simple as a stone. "You threw me out when I was sick." Her face tightened. "You were ruining us," she snapped. "People were asking questions. You were making us look weak." I stared at her. "I was your daughter." She flinched at the word daughter, like it burned her tongue. Then she leaned closer, voice dropping. "If you keep pushing," she whispered, "I will tell them things about you that you don't want anyone to hear." My stomach clenched. "Like what?" My mother smiled, small, cruel. "Like how you really got sick," she murmured. My blood turned cold. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. She just turned and walked away, leaving the threat hanging in the air like smoke. I stood there, shaking. Because I realized something. She was about to weaponize my illness. Not just deny it. Rewrite it. It started as whispers. Then it became sentences. Then it became a story. Someone sent me a voice note from a woman I barely knew. Her tone was sympathetic in the way people are when they enjoy your misery. "Beta. I heard you were taking things. Pills. Before. Maybe that's why you're, you know." My hand tightened around my phone. "What?" I croaked. She rushed on. "I'm not judging, I'm just saying, your mother is very worried. She said you were always unstable." I ended the call and sat down hard on my bed. My chest felt tight, my breath shallow. There it was. My mother's plan. If she couldn't erase me legally, she would destroy me socially. Make me a cautionary tale. Make me shame. Because shame is the one illness nobody wants to catch. I opened the prayer box and pulled out my daily truth paper. My pen hovered. I wrote. Day 74. She is trying to kill me without touching me. My hand shook so hard the ink bled. I stared at the words until my eyes blurred. Then I wiped my face and did the only thing I could think of. I called Bibi Safia. Bibi Safia listened without interrupting. When I finished, my voice broke. "She's telling people I did this to myself." Bibi Safia's eyes didn't widen. They hardened. "Of course," she said quietly. "That is her favorite tactic." I blinked. Favorite? Bibi Safia sighed, deep, old sadness. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "Your mother tried this once before," she murmured. "Not with you." My throat tightened. With who? Bibi Safia looked at me for a long moment, like she was choosing whether to hand me another heavy truth. Then she stood slowly and walked to a cabinet. She pulled out a stack of envelopes tied with string. Old envelopes. Old pain. She set them down in front of me. "These," she said, "are letters from girls your mother ruined." My hands went cold. Girls. Bibi Safia nodded once. "Not daughters," she said. "Not blood. But girls in the community, young women she accused, shamed, pushed out, because they threatened her image." I stared at the envelopes, throat tight. Why didn't anyone stop her? I whispered. Bibi Safia's gaze was piercing. "Because she was polished," she said. "And they were young. And shame is loud." My heart pounded. "So why are you stopping her now?" Bibi Safia's face softened, just slightly. "Because your grandmother asked me to," she said. "And because I am tired of burying girls who didn't die, but disappeared." I swallowed hard. So, you're not just helping me. Bibi Safia leaned in. I am ending something, she said. Through you. My breath caught. A strange mix of fear and power washed through me. Because suddenly my story wasn't just mine. It was a door. And Bibi Safia was handing me the key. Mr. Qureshi called it a formal reconciliation and documentation session. Bibi Safia called it what it was. A trap for a liar. They scheduled a committee meeting, something official enough that people would show up, something structured enough that my mother couldn't just scream and leave without looking guilty. The agenda included family dispute resolution, charity fund allocations, and, carefully placed at the end, clarification of beneficiary status for the late elder's estate. My grandmother's estate. My mother couldn't resist. She came dressed like a queen going to court. Amir came too, smirking, holding his phone like he was ready to record me having a breakdown. My father arrived last. He looked older than I remembered. Sicker. His shoulders slumped like he'd been carrying my mother's lies for years and it had finally started crushing him. When his eyes met mine, he looked away. My chest tightened. He was my father. And I couldn't tell if I wanted to hug him or hate him. The committee chair cleared his throat. We are here, he said, to resolve confusion regarding. My mother cut in smoothly. There is no confusion, she said. A disturbed girl is trying to take advantage of a respected elder's death. Bibi Safia's eyes flashed. Do not speak of disturbance, she said coldly, when you are the one creating it. My mother's smile tightened. Then Mr. Qureshi stood. He placed a folder on the table. I will be brief, he said. We have evidence of attempted fraud, coercion, and defamation. My mother laughed, airy. Defamation. Please. Mr. Qureshi turned to the committee. Does anyone here remember Nadia calling this girl her daughter before? He asked. Silence. My stomach dropped. Then, a woman in the back raised her hand slowly. I do, she said. My breath caught. Another man spoke. I remember too, he said. At the school graduation. More voices followed, hesitant at first, then steadier. Yes. I saw her in their home. She took care of the father. Nadia used to brag about her scholarship. My mother's posture stiffened. The room was turning into what my mother feared most. A room full of witnesses. Mr. Qureshi nodded. Thank you, he said. Now. My mother slammed her hand on the table. Enough, she snapped. This is a witch hunt. You all love drama. Her eyes landed on my father. Tell them, she demanded. Tell them she is not. My father swallowed. His hands trembled. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear on his face that wasn't about my mother. It was about truth. He looked at me. I held his gaze, my heart pounding. And then he said quietly, she is my daughter. The room went dead silent. My mother's face went blank. Like a mask cracking. I felt something in my chest break open. Pain, relief, rage, all at once. Bibi Safia's voice cut through the silence. And did your wife deny knowing her? She asked. My father's throat worked like he was swallowing glass. Yes, he whispered. She did. My mother stood so fast her chair fell backward. You, she hissed at him, voice shaking. You weak. He flinched, but he didn't stop. He looked at the committee, then back at me, and his eyes filled with tears he didn't deserve forgiveness for. I let her do it, he said. Because I was afraid. Afraid. That word. The whole room heard it. And suddenly my family's story wasn't strong. It was pathetic. My mother's lips trembled. She looked around and realized she was losing the room. So she did what cornered people do. She went for the jugular. She's sick because she chose it, she spat. She was taking things. Pills. Who knows what? A murmur rippled. My stomach dropped. Even now, even after witnesses, the old fear flared. What if they believe her? Mr. Qureshi raised a hand calmly. We anticipated this, he said. He opened his folder and pulled out medical documents, not my private details, but official statements. Her diagnosis is supported by specialist testing, he said. Autoimmune markers, consistent symptoms, documented treatment. My mother scoffed. Documents can be made. Mr. Qureshi nodded once, as if he'd been waiting for that. Agreed, he said. So we also requested verification directly from the clinic. My mother's eyes narrowed. And, Mr. Qureshi continued, we requested something else. He turned to my father. Sir, he said gently, do you recall signing any documents related to her birth? My father blinked. Yes, at the hospital. Mr. Qureshi's voice stayed neutral. And did Nadia also sign? My father hesitated. My mother's eyes burned into him. He swallowed. Yes, he said. Mr. Qureshi nodded and turned to the room. Then the claim that she is not known is proven false, he said. Legally and socially. My mother's face tightened. But then Bibi Safia spoke softly, dangerously. Now tell them, she said, eyes on my mother, why you are truly afraid. My mother's nostrils flared. I'm not afraid. Bibi Safia's voice was gentle like a knife. You are afraid, she said, because if she is acknowledged, the trust clause activates. My mother froze. The room leaned in. Mr. Qureshi opened another document. This trust includes a condition, he said. If Nadia attempts to deny, disinherit, coerce, or defraud the named beneficiary, she forfeits access to other estate assets. My mother's face drained. And suddenly, everything clicked for everyone in the room. My mother hadn't denied me because she didn't know me. She denied me because she wanted money. My brother's smirk vanished. People's eyes turned sharp, disgusted. My father sagged like someone had cut his strings. My mother's voice cracked. You planned this, she whispered, staring at Bibi Safia like she was seeing a ghost. Bibi Safia didn't blink. Your mother planned it, she corrected. Because she knew you. My mother's eyes snapped to me. And for the first time, I saw something raw behind them. Not remorse. Not love. Humiliation. She stepped toward me, voice trembling with fury. You did this, she hissed. You turned them against me. I felt my hands shake, but I kept my voice steady. No, I said. You did that when you threw me out. Her mouth opened, then closed, like she couldn't compute that I wasn't begging. You were weak, she spat. Always weak. Always sick. Always needing. I swallowed pain and said the truth I'd never dared to say out loud. I was a child. The room inhaled. My mother's face twisted. I fed you, she snapped. I clothed you. You owe me. That word, oh, hit me like a slap. I looked her in the eyes. If love is a debt, I said quietly, then you never loved me. Her breath hitched. For a fraction of a second, I saw her almost break. Then her pride snapped back into place like armor. You think you're righteous, she sneered. Look at you. Standing here with elders like you're important. Because bullies hate witnesses. Bibi Safia spoke. Calm. Nadia, she said, before you speak, remember, every lie you tell today will be answered with paper. My mother's jaw clenched. She looked at the committee. At the elders. At the mediator. At Mr. Qureshi. Then she smiled. Cold. Fine, she said. You want truth. Here's truth. My heartbeat thundered. She is not my daughter, my mother said loudly. Not by blood. The room went still. My vision blurred, but I stayed upright. My mother's voice rose. She is someone else's mistake. A gasp. My father's face drained. My brother looked startled, like even he hadn't known how far she'd go. Bibi Safia didn't flinch. She simply slid the second letter across the table and said, Read. My mother's hand trembled as she grabbed it. Her eyes scanned the page. And then, her face changed. Not anger. Fear. Real fear. Because my grandmother's letter didn't just hint. It accused. It detailed. It named. It described how my mother had tried to manipulate documents, how she planned to deny me, how she used shame as a weapon. My mother's lips parted. You she breathed, staring at Bibi Safia like she was betrayed by the dead. Bibi Safia's voice was quiet. Your mother knew, she said. Your husband knew. And now your community knows. My mother shook her head. This isn't fair, she whispered. I almost laughed. Not fair. She threw me out during illness. She erased me. She stalked me. And now she was asking for fairness. I leaned forward, voice trembling but clear. Tell them, I said, why you really denied me. My mother's eyes snapped to mine, hatred blazing. Because now she understood. She had no leverage left. The mediator spoke gently. Madam, if there are claims about parentage, those can be clarified privately through proper channels. Mr. Qureshi nodded. DNA testing exists, he said calmly. Medical proof exists. But none of that changes the fraud, coercion, and denial you committed. My mother's breath hitched. She realized she couldn't win. So she tried to do the only thing she had left. She tried to hurt. She looked at me, eyes gleaming. You're nothing, she spat. You were never wanted. Silence. And then my father spoke, voice shaking, but louder than I'd ever heard. Stop, he said. My mother turned on him. You. He stood. I let you destroy her, he said, tears in his eyes. But you will not speak to her like that again. My mother stared at him, shocked. After everything I did for you, she hissed. My father's voice broke. You did it for yourself, he whispered. My mother's face twisted. And in that moment, something I didn't expect happened. I felt pity, not because she deserved it, but because I could see the emptiness behind her control. A woman so terrified of shame she sacrificed her own child. I took a breath and said, quietly, Ami, you can keep your pride. I tapped the prayer box in my bag. I'll keep my life. Legally, the outcome came in layers. Protective orders. Documented defamation. A formal acknowledgement of beneficiary status. The trust, my trust, was secured. My mother's attempt to interfere triggered the clause. She lost access to what she was trying to steal. My brother's share shrank. He stopped calling. My mother stopped showing up in public for a while. When she did, people's smiles were different, tight, cautious. And my father, my silent father, began sending messages. Short ones. Awkward ones. How are you feeling today? Did you eat? I'm sorry. I didn't reply at first. Because apologies after abandonment feel like rain after a fire. Too late to save what burned. But I kept them. Not as forgiveness. As evidence that truth changed the world, even if it didn't heal it. My health didn't magically improve. Some days I still woke up feeling like my body was made of shattered glass. But now I had stability. Doctors who listened. A home that didn't threaten to eject me when I needed rest. I could breathe without fear of being too much. And that, more than money, was what my grandmother left me. Freedom. On the first day I truly felt safe in my apartment, I did something small. I took my grandmother's ring and threaded it onto a simple chain. Not because I wanted to show it off, but because I wanted it close to my pulse. A reminder that someone saw me. I placed the prayer box on the windowsill, where the sun warmed it. And I opened it one last time to add a new sentence. My hands were steady. My pen didn't shake. I wrote. Day 120. I will not beg to be recognized again. Then I closed the box gently. Outside, the world kept moving. Cars, voices, distant sirens. Life doesn't pause for heartbreak. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't moving through it like a ghost. I was here. I existed. And if my mother ever tried to erase me again, she'd have to do it in a room full of witnesses. Beat. I thought that would be the end. I thought the truth had finally settled. Then, one evening, as I came home from the clinic with my prescription bag rustling in my hand, I saw someone sitting on the stairs outside my building. A familiar silhouette. Perfect posture. Perfect hair. My mother. My stomach turned to ice. She looked up at me, eyes unreadable. And in her hand, She held my wooden prayer box. The exact one I kept on my windowsill. My breath caught. How? I whispered. She smiled. Small. Dangerous. You left your window open, she said softly. Just like you left your life open. My fingers clenched around the prescription bag. Give it back, I said, voice shaking. My mother tilted her head. I came to make a deal, she said. One last deal. I took a slow step forward, heart pounding. No more deals, I whispered. She tapped the box with one nail. Inside this, she said, are your secrets. Your papers. Your truth. Her eyes narrowed. If you don't stop, I will make sure everyone hears a story about you that you will never escape. My mouth went dry. Because the prayer box wasn't just wood. It was my evidence. My daily truths. My letters. My proof of survival. My mother held it like a hostage. And I realized, with a cold clarity that made my hands stop shaking. The final fight wasn't about money. It was about who got to own my story. I lifted my chin. Open it, I said. My mother blinked. What? Open it, I repeated, voice steady now. Right here. In front of me. And say whatever you want to say. My mother's smile faltered. Because she expected fear. She expected pleading. But I had already lived through exile. And there's a point in suffering where you stop bargaining. You just decide. I stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. Go ahead, I whispered. Try to erase me again. My mother's hand tightened on the box. Her jaw clenched. And for the first time, she looked unsure. A neighbor stepped out, glanced at us, and paused. Then another door. Another neighbor. People. Witnesses. My mother's eyes darted. She hated witnesses. I smiled, small and sharp. Not so easy, I murmured. When people are watching, is it? My mother's lips parted. She stood slowly, clutching the box. And then she said, through clenched teeth, this isn't over. She shoved the prayer box into my hands hard enough that it stung. Then she turned and walked away down the stairs, heels clicking like gunshots. I stood there, shaking, holding the box to my chest. My neighbor asked quietly, are you okay? I looked down at the worn wood, at the little scratches that proved it was real. And I answered honestly, I don't know, I whispered. Then I opened it, right there in the hallway, checking if anything was missing. The papers were there. The letters. My daily truths. Everything. Except one thing. A single folded slip of paper I didn't recognize. I opened it with trembling fingers. It was in my mother's handwriting. Just one sentence. You want a mother? Then come take what's left of her. My blood ran cold. Because that wasn't a threat. That was an invitation. Or a trap. And as I stood there in the hallway, the neighbor's doors slowly closing, I realized. My mother wasn't done trying to control me. She was changing tactics. And whatever she planned next was going to be uglier than denial.